Hey, everybody, it's your hospitality friend, Len here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we're going to be focused on a potentially devastating impact of the Department of Labor because they were looking to change some overtime rules. And I'm glad to say that for all of you out there, that there will be no immediate cost increase for small businesses out there. But I'm a little confused about how all of this works. You're probably a little bit confused about how all this works, but one guy that is never confused, I got Chirag Shah with me, EVP Federal Political Affairs and Councils at the American Hotel and Lodging Association, which is here to worry about these things so you guys out there and I don't have to. Chirag, this whole thing is messing with my brain because I grew up in a world where, if you worked full time, then you got one check at the end of the week, period, the end, whether I worked 29 hours or 4,000 hours per week. Why did that change? When did that change? How did that change? And what's going on with all this change? And welcome.
Thanks so much, Glenn. It's always great to be on with you. I tell you, always raises the energy for my entire week anytime I get to speak. I'm very grateful to you and to share a little information. It's always confusing when things come out from a government agency. It's always in legalese, and so
Well, my rule is if they put out something and they title it a bill, then you know exactly what it means by doing the opposite.
so it's more
So go on, explain what's going on here.
Yeah, so the Department of Labor proposed a rule. So this is a regulatory agency. They came out with a rule that they were going to increase the overtime threshold for exempt employees. So folks in an executive or an administrative or professional capacity. And basically, the major distinction is who is salaried versus who is hourly. And they came out with this rule, and they allowed for comments from interested parties, and so AHLA and a lot of our coalition partners and a lot of hoteliers from across the country chimed in on this as well. They decided they were going to increase the threshold. Ultimately, when they passed the final rule, increase the threshold from about 35,500 a year to a two-step process. First, to increase it to about 43,000 and some change by July 1 of 24, and then by January 1 of 2025, increase it to just shy of $59,000.
Has
And
this rule always existed?
the overtime rule itself has existed, but the major distinction,
Long because
yeah, few decades. Yeah.
when I was making 18 grand back in 1994, nobody was telling me this, and I was working like six.
It's been around for a few decades, and actually, I think I want to say wants to go back to the 70s, but we'll source through that. The biggest issue, though, is that the last change came just 3 years ago, and you may recall the actual debate that took place very similarly a few years back in 2016 when the Obama administration tried to pass a similar increase to the overtime threshold. There was 23,000 to almost 50,000 in the span of 3 months. That was struck down by a federal court when the Trump administration took over. They increased it from 23,000 to a little over 35,000, like 35, or excuse me, 35,500, and that's where we set
Right.
just before the Biden administration took over and tried to increase it yet again. And I think that's one of the challenges that hoteliers have is they want some certainty. What is the rule? How do I follow it? And then we'll move on. And that's the challenge that we run into right now.
And that's what you guys are out there for, to make sure that everything is crystal clear, unlike my complete understanding of this situation. So they were set to increase the threshold again to $58,656 on January 1st. That's a $25,000 increase almost. What is the practical effect of if that would happen for, let's say, the average hotelier out there?
Yeah. There's a couple of sides of this equation that we've looked at in talking to our members and understanding what the impact will be on the industry. You have the owner side and operator side effect, and then you also have the employee side effect. The biggest challenge that we have is that it is a one size fits all approach to labor market and labor issues that come out of Washington D.C. And there's obviously a dramatic difference between the labor market in Manhattan, Kansas versus Manhattan, New York. And
Right.
that one size fits all didn't take into account regional considerations. It also was set to increase every 3 years. That wouldn't take into account market forces either.
Right.
And that's very difficult for hoteliers.
So, for example, I love that you're talking about, like, Manhattan, Kansas versus Manhattan, New York City. Like, I mean, yeah, but if you're looking like San Francisco, they've been struggling really hard, right? So if they're in the same condition they are now 3 years from now, then a more salary threshold could put those hotels even more
Yep.
financial power.
That's a great point. That's an absolute great point. We're hearing that from members from coast to coast. So absolutely true. And that's on the owner operator side. On the employee side, there is a challenge as well because what this might end up doing is changing the entire structure of the workforce itself and forcing employers to have to reclassify employees from being salaried to being hourly. And that challenge will certainly affect morale. It will also
Right.
affect stability in terms of schedules and work duties and things like that as well.
That's really crazy that they would even do this. But then again, I mean, we're all used to this. Government loves to try to do stuff that's crazy, and that's why we need great associations like the AHLA to explain how reality actually works and get them out of their little political bubbles over there. All right, so why was the $43,000, $888 okay with you guys? Why didn't you oppose that?
Yeah, so we our coalition got together, and a lot of credit to Kat Fonda from our team who runs our labor policy shop and helped to head up the lawsuit against the DOL. But we
Right.
reached out to our members to understand, all right, what are the implications that this too steep process had. We were expecting the DOL to come with just sort of the larger number, and so we ended up going back and doing the research to make sure that we understood this. And it looked like the market was already in a place that the first step of that 43,000 and change wasn't going to have a dramatic impact, but the increase to almost 60,000 would, especially.
So you Okay, so when you say we were already in that place, that means the average person that would fall into this bucket was already making about that amount of money.
That was our understanding from hearing from folks again across the country, but also
That makes sense.
since talking to folks in specific regions where there may be a bigger impact. But this is what we're hearing. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here in New York, Long Island. Obviously, the general manager or some other executive at a property is making at least $43,888. But as you pointed out in that Manhattan, Kansas example, that may or may not be true in that particular jurisdiction, right? So that makes sense. And then if you try to jump it up by 20,000, then that really kind of wrecks the entire financial model potentially of a hotel.
Upward pressure across the entire pay scale.
I'll just say it. It's not just this one thing. You hoteliers out there are already trying to take care of your hourly employees. You're paying them more than you ever have before, but also costs of goods and services and stuff continue to cost more money. So, Chirag, I mean, it's crazy because I'm really feeling like we are more than every penny counts stage in hospitality than we've ever been at before.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And while revenue has gone up, to your exact point, costs continue to go up from every single part of the P&L, right? And so
Right.
we're concerned, certainly looking at that, but also what is it going to mean for small businesses in particular? I'll give you a great example. A member of our board, Jagrati Panwala, phenomenal. I know she's
Yep.
been a good friend of yours for a long.
Owner of a wheelchair. Yeah.
And absolutely. And she testified before the U.S. House of Representatives on this particular issue, and we want to understand these issues. We work with her on her testimony and understanding what this means at a property level, from a business level, and she explained to members of Congress how this is going to affect hoteliers from across the country, and they really listened to what she had to say, and that's why when we pulled together the coalition to have this conversation, a lot of these points were mirrored those exact arguments.
Yeah, the fascinating. Is there anything else that we need to know about this, particular topic?
Yes, I'd say the last part is sort of where we go from here. And so the Biden administration has announced that they have an intent to appeal the decision,
Mhm.
but now the question becomes, it's unlikely there's going to be an appeal sort of in the next month and a half, even actually just a month from
Well,
now.
let's say if the appeal was done today, come January 20th, can't they just rescind that appeal? And the next administration chooses to do that?
Well, and that's the question. So, does the Trump administration carry on with the appeal? It looks like that's similar to what happened, 4 year or yeah, before just about you might be just about 4 years ago. So we're expecting a similar trajectory to take place. But then what happens next? Does the Trump administration then increase it again based on the similar methodology they did the last time when they increased it from 23 to 35? So there's a lot of open questions coming next, but ultimately we're here making sure that hoteliers' bottom lines are protected, and we're looking forward to kind of what comes next.
Yeah, well, you helped with you the segue here. How could me and all of the folks out there that are great hoteliers get more involved and make sure they have a clear understanding of these issues that crop up and how to take the side of the hotel industry?
Yeah. AHLA's website and go to Hotels Act. You'll have the opportunity to plug into a lot of these issues, learn what's going on. We're going to be updating a lot of our information, putting out our policy guide for 2025, coming out here very shortly. Now that we have a little bit better understanding of what the playing field is going to look like, and we're going to have hotels on the hill. Glenn, and you and I know we've talked about this. We're aiming for spring. Hopefully, should have that date hammered out. But bringing a few hundred hoteliers to DC to make sure that our voices are heard is the best way of ensuring good public policy for the hotel industry.
And I was gonna hit you up after we stopped recording to make sure I was involved, but I'm doing it now. For all right. Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate you being here today. That was hey, thanks, man. I appreciate all of you for being out here. Remember, the HLA is out there doing these things. Like, honestly, I'm not following this stuff on an every single day basis, right? So I had no idea that this was going on until they successfully stopped this raise and this threshold increase from moving forward. So make sure you stay connected to what they're doing, participate. And of course, we're going to carry all of the news from the American Hotel and Lodging Association has on novacancynews.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.